Hey, hi guys. I haven't posted a video in a while because I've been waiting for the dealer to call back about that fixing the rust that was at the gasket on the doors. But I decided to go ahead and jump in and do something. So this is the rear end. I took apart the rear end. And why did I take apart the rear end? Basically because the U-Haul hitch that was on there was completely rusty. So I already painted it. So basically I stripped the rust off and bought some primer from Home Depot and painted it. The easiest way to take off the rust, I'll show you the tool that I used. So basically to strip off the rust, I bought this attachment which you get at an automotive store. You see the pad is worn down. It basically you put it onto a cutter tool or grinder tool and then just go to town on it and take off all the rust. So basically I just bought some basic automotive primer, gray primer, primed it up, and then I had a whole case of this, and I basically went ahead and did several coats of this on top of the primer once it dried. So it kind of all snowballed. So once I fixed that, I noticed that the bumper was all rusted. So I did the same thing. I cleaned up all the rust, and the points that you want to see is what you're looking at is the bumper upside down. This piece was all rusted, and I'll show you the other side. It actually rusted through, but I'm gonna fix that later. You get some rust down here on the plate. You get some rust on this that holds the bumper cover. This basically holds the bumper cover and the inside lining. The same thing with here on the mounting plate. You'll get some rust around here, and here you'll see that it actually rusted through. Since I don't have an arc welder to weld a new piece of metal on, I went ahead, I'll have to do that later once I learn how to weld. So then you'll get some rust on the bottom edge around here. So basically clean that up, paint it up, and didn't have to make it really look pretty because it's the bumper structure. Okay, and the snowballing continues basically. I pulled off the gasket. What I found was this over here had rust. The same thing on the other side. Right here had rust. And down right here at the hitch had rust. So basically these two mounts hold the bumper cover. And basically what happens is the vibration, I believe, from the plastic just kind of rubs against here and wears away the paint and then starts to rust, and you get water raining down here over that, and that causes rust. So basically I primed that. I painted it with some base color paint. Didn't have to look pretty because it could be covered up by the bumper cover. Then to keep it from wearing away again, I used some of this crystal clear Gorilla tape, which is actually waterproof tape. So that will actually keep the rubbing from happening. And at the same time you'll get some rust along the edge here of the gasket all the way around the edge. So basically I cleaned that off, primed it, and just painted it with some matching color. So basically I'm going to go ahead and since I was already in here, I went ahead and installed a backup sensor. Let me go ahead and show you the 4 sensors on the cover. So the snowball continues. So basically, but this is my own doing. So who says you need a backup sensor? Well, since I was already took it the whole bumper back part apart, I went ahead and bought backup audible sensor. It doesn't have pictures or anything, and I got this set for 4 sensors. It's a little over around $100 or less than $100. It's by Echo Master, and I have that on my van, so I really like their brand. So this is Echo Master Parking Alert Digital Rear Sensing Matted Black. I got matted black because I was able to paint them with matching color and clear coat. So they're spaced about 16 inches apart, and they're just the right height where I was able to find a little empty space in the bumper frame, and I'll go back and show you that. So back at the bumper frame, you'll see that this is actually the bottom side, top side, And there's actually a groove right in here, and this is the height where I actually put the sensor, so it actually sits in this groove, so that way it doesn't hit this hump here or this hump here. And the best way to do that is to go ahead and put the cover. You set it up like this, put the cover on top, you measure your distance, drill a little pilot hole to make sure you're hitting right in the middle. If not, then just move a little over until you hit right in the middle, and then go ahead and drill your hole for the sensor. That way you get adjusted an eighth or 1/16 of an inch to be able to get it right in there. So for the wiring, I like their wiring. It comes really well managed. It has covers on it, and actually has numbers for each of the sensors. Plenty length, especially for this Mini Cooper. And I was able to run it up, and there's actually a hole up here right next to this where all this other wire, regular wire, goes through. Right next to that there's a plug, a plastic plug. So basically you just need to drill some pilot holes through that plastic plug, use a screwdriver and punch through it, and once you punch through it, you'll be able to bring it in. Yeah, there it is. So I punched through, and it comes with a grommet, the kit, so it seals it up nice and neat. So I was able to bring it in, connect it up. There's the Echo Master control box. I actually ran the Audible wire back. Let me see if I can see it. I followed the wiring and the Audible. There's the Audible wire, and it comes out, and I actually put it on this side because there's actually an indent groove here, and actually it sits nicely right there. Now the wire for the backup, I'll show you which one that is. You go ahead and disconnect the connector from the whole backup light here. I'll pull it out. Okay, here's the connector that I unplugged from the light in the back, and basically the wire that you are going to use would be this one right here, the first one way on the right if you're looking at it this way. So I tied the power for the backup to this wire, and that's where you see the red wire coming off there. I wrapped it all back up, soldered, shrink wrap tubed it, and nice good connection. Comes with a fuse, and then I ground it right in here. There's already a stud coming through, so I found a nut that fits, put a clip on it, just screwed it right in, and that's a good ground. Tested it with an ohm meter. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead put it back together, and I'll point along some things I found out as I was taking it apart. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the gasket back on. I went to Pep Boys and picked up some super weather strip adhesive. Before I had this white stuff on it, which wasn't working really well. Didn't seem like it cleaned off as much as I could. So we'll go ahead and put the gasket back on. Okay, thing I did is I cleaned out the crap out of the gasket. This is my dry fit. Make sure I don't put this thing back on upside down or sideways. This is pretty good, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is put some markers, so that way like right here where the weld is, I'll put a mark there, put a mark here, put a mark here, up arrow right there, and this lines up with the latch. So I'll put a mark there. So the direction for that gasket stuff I bought is apply a thin bead on both sides, wait 10 minutes, then reattach it. So I'll pull it off and go ahead and do that. Okay, Now I already went ahead and put a bead on the weather strip. Now knowing how ugly yellow this stuff comes out, I went ahead and put some protective tape around the edge, and I'm glad I did because some of it would have gone onto the trim. So through the magic of time, I'm going to wait 10 minutes and then place the weather strip back on. Okay, through 10 minutes passed, I went ahead and put the gasket back on. Make sure it's well seated. Your markers are all lined up, and it all fits in nice and seated and neat. Be sure to, when you go around, you pull this piece out so that way your indoor inside trim is underneath this, but above the gasket that seats onto the actual frame or metal. So you go around, make sure it's all pulled out, it's not underneath your trim like that. Make sure it's still seated well, and it's all pressed down. Look at the edges to make sure it's as far in flush as possible, and it's good to go. Okay, next step is I'm going to go ahead and reattach the bumper frame and the U-Haul tow hitch or hitch. So the hitch is going to go on, it's held on by 8 bolts, 4 on each side. And then this goes on top of that, so basically that gets sandwiched between this and the car. So let's go ahead and do that. Paint's dry enough, it's not tacky anymore. Okay, here's the hitch back on with the bumper frame. I used a 13mm to tighten the 8 bolts. These are probably not the original bolts that came with the car, because they probably had to, when they had U-Haul put it on, they probably had to get longer bolts. So they're around 13mm, for at least for this car. I taped up the wiring out of the way so don't bang it up, especially the backup sensor hookups, and there it's all connected. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put the I think it's the bumper back on. So there's a nice new painted hitch, not rusted anymore. So let's go ahead and keep going on, putting stuff back on the bumper cover. Okay, here's the bumper cover. The inside of it, you can see the 4 backup sensors with the wires. So we'll go ahead and attach that back on. Basically, you'll have a screw here, a bolt there, side bolts on there. Then we'll go have this mount right here, which mounts to this. And from the inside wheel well splash cover, you're going to go inside to be able to put those clips back on there. And that goes right there. And that's the one that's just rusted out on the back side right there. So let's go ahead and snap that back on and screw it up. Okay, before the bumper was taken off, I had to, here's a thing to hold the wiring for the side lights, side marker lights. So go ahead and I cut the tape. So what I'm going to do is use some tie wraps and tie wrap it back on there. And you have the same thing on the other side. Before taking the bumper off, I went ahead and cut the tape. And so I could take the wire, side marker wire off. So I'm going to tie wrap that back on. And probably go ahead and tie wrap some of this with it too. And you see it's all wired up. So we got to tuck it in nice and neat in there. Okay, I go ahead and stuck 2 tie wraps here. You see I'm using the black tie wraps because the black tie wraps are more, they won't brittle as easy as the white ones will, and they'll the UV won't break them down. And I put 2 tie wraps here. So we'll go ahead and fit it in. Remember I said I'd go ahead and fix the rust here and put a piece of that clear weatherproof tape. So basically I made a little template like this. So I can cut the tape to fit in right there. And when I put in the screw, it'll go ahead and punch a hole through that. And this would be just the reverse side for the other side. And to be able to do that easily is get some parchment paper, put the tape on the parchment paper. So then go ahead and put your template on, cut it out, and then you can peel the tape right off the parchment paper and stick it on. So let's go ahead, button this up and mount it back. Okay guys, I have to do a little bit of rewiring here because or at least tie wrapping, because I realized if I ran the wire straight up, shortest distance, it's actually going over this hump. And I know over time, as this bumper rubs against this piece, it'll just end up destroying the wire. So I have to run the wire along the channel, which is why I did out that way. And I'm going to run this one this way, so that way it will be running in the channel, so you don't get any rubbing there. So now it's all tidied up, tie wrapped. I think everything's going to fit nice and neat, and I'm going to put the bumper right back on now. Okay guys, here's the bumper cover back on. I got a screw there, got a screw here. Make sure my side marker, I can get to that. Got a screw here, got a screw here. Make sure I got my side marker. And let me show you what the bottom looks like. Okay, here you have one bolt on the passenger rear side, right there. There's my nicely painted hitch, and that was some excess wire. Wasn't the greatest place to tie it, but that's the only place I could find, so I tie wrapped it there because you don't want it just dangling, otherwise it's pulling up on the sensor. I think everything else, the wire's clear, so we're going good to go. So I'm going to clip the trim off that and keep going. Okay, if you ever have to take this off, this back trim right here, basically it has snaps on the top, but the tricky one is the 3 snaps on the inside bottom, which is just 1, 2, and 3. And basically those work by these clips. Basically you have to pull this out from the middle, pull it out, and then it allows you to slide it out. Okay, now I'm going to put the fender trim back on, and these are the worst pain in the butt. Basically broke every single clip that I had that was in here. There's no easy way that I thought of trying to be able to get them out, and when you choose to pop them out, they break. So and as you're slowly popping this fender off from front to rear where the marker light is, be very careful. When you get here and you can get your hand in, go ahead and disconnect this, because if you don't disconnect it, you'll probably break it off. Because apparently, I assume when the U-Haul people put that hitch on, that's what they did. They snapped this off, and when I took it off, it came off and there was glue residue in here, so I knew they glued it back on. So basically that's what I did again, and I went ahead and used some super glue and glued that back on. So the clips you're going to need here, I got this 124 piece Mini Cooper retainer clip assortment from Amazon. And let me show you which one you need. Well, oddly enough, these is what they were on there when I took it off, and then they all broke. But these, I believe, are the ones that are supposed to be on there, because they're the 11.5 by 19 millimeter, and they fit in an 8 millimeter hole, which is a smaller hole. The other one's designed for an 11 millimeter hole. And they're white nylon, trim panel, and fender flare molding clip. The other one's a molding clip too. So I'm going to have to see which one actually works better, and I'll let you know. Okay guys, I'm getting ready to put the fender on, and there was a clip right here, and the clip ends up looking like this, and it was a bugger to take out. Basically, you have to pull this centerpiece out. There's like a little little slot to be able to do that with. And pull it out, and that way it allows you to be able to slide this out. That explains why this is ripped, and on the fender that same tab is ripped because whoever took it off before probably destroyed it. So I'm going to replace it with these. It's so blurry, man. It's 5/16 nylon rivets. These you can actually screw in and screw out. So I think these will actually work a lot better in that sense. Oh, and I decided to go with the gray tabs because the gray tabs actually hold on better. The white ones would actually fall off. So I'm going to go ahead and snap this back in and plug in the side marker and then put in the clip on the bottom to hold that in. Okay, that's got both fenders on, and I did touch up the paint because it appears that the plastic from the fender does rub against the paint, the body, and it caused some of the paint to rub off in certain areas. So I went ahead and touched that in. So both of those pieces in. So basically all I have left is the two fasteners on the back where the splash thing on underneath attaches on both sides, and those basically uses these. As you snap this in, then you push this one in or screw it in, and you have two of those in the back wheel well, and then that should be it. Okay, here's a little problem I found. When you take these out, see how they're flared out like this, all the points. So it's going to make it hard to put this thing back in, because when you try to push it in, all these are going to bend outward, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. So what I did is borrow some of my daughters and sons' orthodontic elastic bands because they have braces, and basically I'm going to use a rubber band to hold them closed and be able to slide it in. Hopefully that works. Okay, those four clips are in the back, the side fenders are on, the bumper's on, everything's in. The only thing I have left is to reinstall the spare tire. Now the Snowball continues, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when I dropped this spare tire to be able to work on the bumper and take the bumper off, the whole spare was rusted basically. I had a bunch, you can still see some rust in there. I cleaned it off as much as I could, repainted it, but basically it's gonna hold a lot of crap in there. This side wasn't as bad because this is the side that faces down. This is the side that faces up, so any moisture will collect in this groove and start rusting it out, and it really doesn't drain very well. So I think I might go to Pep Boys automotive store, see if they have a cover to put onto the tire that help keep the moisture from getting in there. I don't know if they have a cover for spares or not, but it's worth a try. I'll run over there and take a look. Okay, I think this is what I'm going to do. I bought this rear wheel tire cover from Pep Boys. Looks like this, and this is actually fitted for 26.5 to 29.5, but this spare is only around 22, 23, so you got a lot of extra material, which is okay. And this is showing it upside down, and what I did is, if you're thinking this is upside down, that if this is, water might collect in this little around the rim here upside down. So I went ahead and made little holes like right here, basically all around, little cuts to allow the if any water collects inside here to drain out. I marked the middle where I'm going to cut out a hole, so that way this piece could fit through and fit through the other side. So let me go ahead and do that and see how it fits. Okay, I put the cover on. The plastic cover, wheel cover, and the holder from the bottom with the hole cut through. I'm pretty happy with that. One thing I realized, this has this extension valve, so you can fill it up, check the air pressure and check it from the outside, because otherwise this is sitting pointing up and you won't be able to get to it. So I had to cut a little hole for that, and that way I could screw this in. So we'll go ahead and do that and mount it up. Okay, I went ahead and pumped up this tire, and when I first did it, I could hear air leaking out through this valve here, so I reseated it. I'm highly pessimistic that that all this thing you're not going to get any air leaks, but this is what it's holding at right now, 50, a little short of 60, so I'm going to leave it there for about 10-15 minutes and see if we're losing air. Okay, it's been more than 5 minutes, and this is where the pressure where I first measured it. It's about 58, so more than 5 minutes. Let's see if we if it dropped less than 58. It did, and then we're losing air. Well, it looks like there is probably a leak somewhere, because now we're at around 55. So we lost about 3 pounds. So I'm guessing something is leaking slowly somewhere. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that and see how long it takes for it to lose all the air out of the tire, basically, and try to figure out where it is. I think it's in the hose, the connection hose. But okay, so let's go ahead and mount this, and I'll keep track of that over the week. Okay, I'm having trouble snapping that spare tire in. Basically, you push it up and it goes into these clips and snaps in. But I think I know what the problem is, because I noticed that when I took out the tire, it was pushing against this bar right here. So I'm going to cut that off. This thing was from the U-Haul hitch piece, and it's not. I don't use it. It won't be used. Sorry, I think I was flipping the camera around different ways. So basically, it won't snap in. This is in the way, so I'm going to cut that off the hitch. Okay, mission accomplished. I cut that off and spray some paint on it really quick, and then try to mount that back up there. Maybe I just won't paint it. See if I can get the wheel back on. Okay, this is total crap. The rear tire will not fit unless it's deflated, because it hits the tow bar. So this won't be able to reach up high enough. The edge of the tire ends up hitting the tow bar. So that's why when I remember taking it off, the tire is really deflated, and part of this was pushed up against the tow bar. So they must have let the air out, knowing that it won't fit unless you actually have a flat tire, basically, as a spare. So I'm going to modify this, try to raise this up higher, get a longer bolt, and see how this is made up of. And that way I can get the spare in, and it still has air. Okay, that was a pain in the butt getting that bolt off. Basically, you can't get it off by just turning it, because they have Loctite, blue Loctite, holding it in. So basically I have to cut the head off the inside, and basically what you see is I have this piece, and you see this key here has a key on the hole here, so that lines it up, so that way keeps it in the right position. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack this with a spacer to give it probably another half an inch down, and then that should clear it, because I think it was about a half an inch short. So off the Home Depot to get some a new bolt, and see if I get some spacers maybe put in there, and that should do it, hopefully. Okay, bad news. Home Depot does not carry long metric bolts. This bolt was a M10 1.5, It's about 5¼ inches, so I think I'm going to drop it back down that wheel about an inch, so a nice even inch. So I need to release around a 6-inch, 6¼ inch bolt. So I'm going to look for all the parts online, and then I'll post a separate video on my finished product fixing this. And so I'm going to button up the rest of the car and take it out for a test drive with a backup sensor and see how that works. I'm inside the Mini. It's raining outside. We'll throw it in backup. Let's take a look here. Listen. Listen. Okay, you hear the beeping? Backup sensor. Should change. There it goes. Speeds up a little bit more. Okay. So it seems to be working. So look for the video on how I fixed that the spare tire, making it so it fits in there, and seeing how to fix it if it's leaking too. So till next time, look for the next video. I gotta order my parts for that.